Level 1, the scrub. The beeper goes off at 2:13 a.m. You don't move, not yet. You lie there in the on-call room, fluorescent light bleeding through the cracked door, and you count to 3. Then you count to 3 again. Your heart is already hammering before your feet hit the cold linoleum. You're 26. 6 months out of medical school, $287,000 in debt. The hospital owns you for the next 5 years, and they know it. You scrub in for an emergency appendectomy at 2:47. The attending doesn't look at you. The resident doesn't look at you. You're a pair of hands holding retractors, keeping the field open while someone who matters does the cutting. Your arms burn after 17 minutes. You don't adjust your stance. You don't speak. You exist to be useful and invisible. At 4:15, you're suturing a line of skin closed under the resident's bored supervision. Tighter, she says. You pull the thread until your fingertips go white. Better. You sleep 2 hours, then rounds, then clinic, then another page. This is the bargain. You work 87 hours this week. You make $58,000 a year before taxes. You miss your sister's wedding. You develop a tremor in your left hand that only shows up when you're alone. You tell yourself it's caffeine. You tell yourself it will pass. You watch a third-year resident make a mistake during a central line placement. Air embolism. The patient codes, the attending steps in, fixes it, saves the life. Later, in the locker room, you hear the resident crying in a shower stall. Nobody checks on her. The unspoken rule settles into your bones. Your mistakes are yours alone. Your successes belong to the system. You start carrying a notebook. Every attending's preference, every complication they mention in passing, every name they drop, you write it all down in a cramped shorthand only you can read. Information is the only currency you have. You spend it carefully. At the end of month 4, a senior resident hands you a scalpel during a cholecystectomy. Take the cystic duct, he says. Your hands don't shake. Not this time, you cut. Level 2, the blade. They start calling you by name. It's subtle at first. You, room 4. Then you, scrub in. Then finally just your name, clipped and functional, thrown over a shoulder as someone walks away. It shouldn't matter. It does. You're in your 2nd year now. You can close a midline laparotomy in under 12 minutes. You know which nurses will answer a page at 3 a.m. and which ones won't. You know which attendings want silence during surgery and which ones want you to anticipate their needs before they speak. You start getting the cases nobody else wants. The morbidly obese patient nobody can intubate. The prisoner with the abdominal stab wound and 2 guards standing in the corner. The homeless man with the necrotizing fasciitis who smells like death before you even cut. You take them all, you don't complain. Complaint is a luxury you haven't earned. The money hasn't changed. Still $62,000. Still the debt, but something else is accumulating. Reputation. The scrub nurses request you by name. An attending mentions you to a colleague at another hospital. Reliable, he says, doesn't talk back. You hear about it third hand and you feel something dangerous. Pride. You make your first real mistake in month 14. A bowel perforation you missed during a routine case. The patient develops sepsis, spends 9 days in the ICU. You don't get sued. The hospital's legal team makes sure of that, but you get a meeting. Just you and the chief of surgery in a windowless room with coffee that tastes like punishment. You need to be more careful, he says. He doesn't yell. That's worse. We have plans for you, but plans change. You understand finally what the system wants from you. Not perfection. Perfection is impossible. What it wants is containment. Handle your messes quietly. Never let them reach the surface. Never let the institution look bad. You start sleeping less. 4 hours, then 3. You develop a system. 2 cups of coffee before 6 a.m. Then nothing until after the last case. You learn to eat standing up in 30 seconds without tasting anything. Your body becomes a machine you maintain minimally, like a car you don't plan to keep. At a department dinner, a senior surgeon puts his hand on your shoulder and says, "You're one of the good ones." The pressure of his fingers lingers. You understand that you're being claimed. That loyalty in this world is not abstract. It is physical. It is witnessed. You choose your side that night. You don't even realize you're choosing. Level 3, the operator. They give you a key card to the attending lounge. It doesn't sound like much. It's just a room with stale pastries and worse coffee. But the key card means something. It means you're no longer interchangeable. It means someone vouched for you. It means you're inside. You're 3 years in. You've done over 400 cases. As primary surgeon, you can feel tissue planes with your eyes closed. You know the sound of a bleeder before the monitor alarms. You've held a human heart in your hands, literally held it, pumping, while someone else repaired what was broken. The money finally shifts. $285,000 this year. The first time you see the number, you stare at the direct deposit notification for a full minute, then you pay off $40,000 of your loans in one transfer. The remainder still feels like a mountain, but for the first time you can see the other side. You start getting offers. A private practice group wants you for general surgery. $400,000 base partnership track in 3 years. A hospital system 2 states away offers $520,000 and a signing bonus. You decline both. Not because the money isn't tempting, because you're starting to see the real architecture of power, and it doesn't live in private practice. It lives in the academic medical center, in the department, in the committees that decide who gets promoted, who gets funded, whose research gets published. The surgeons with real power don't just operate. They control the pipeline. They decide who becomes what you are becoming. You join a research project. Not because you care about the science, you don't, not really, but because the principal investigator sits on the residency review committee. You publish 3 papers in 18 months. 2 of them you barely understand. Your name is third author. That doesn't matter. What matters is that your name is there at all. You start mentoring a first-year resident, a kid from Ohio, 26, $300,000 in debt. He reminds you of yourself. You teach him the same lessons you learned, which nurses to trust, which attendings to avoid, how to hold a retractor without your arms giving out. You see him watching you the way you once watched others. The hunger in his eyes, the desperation dressed as ambition. You recognize it because you still feel it. You just hide it better now. A patient dies on your table. Massive hemorrhage during a Whipple procedure. Nothing you could have done. The review board agrees, but you lie awake that night replaying the moment the artery blew, wondering if a more experienced hand would have seen it coming, would have clamped faster, would have saved a 53-year-old father of 2. You don't tell anyone about the nightmares. You buy a better mattress instead. You tell yourself sleep is a skill and you're out of practice. Level 4, the name. They start referring to your cases by your name. The Chen approach. Someone calls a modified technique you developed for difficult gallbladder removals. You didn't develop it. You just did it once, under pressure, when nothing else worked. A senior resident observed. He wrote it up. Now it's yours. You're an attending now, officially. The white coat has your name embroidered above the pocket. You have clinic hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You have a PA who pre-writes your notes. You have a parking spot in the garage, level B2, space 447, and you feel a small, shameful surge of satisfaction every time you pull into it. Your base salary is $410,000, but that's not where the money lives. The money lives in the WRVUs, the relative value units you bill for every procedure. A complex colectomy is worth 32.4 units. At $62 per unit, that's $2,008.89 for 4 hours of work. You do 3 on a good day. You start scheduling your cases for maximum efficiency, minimum downtime. You learn which insurance companies pay fastest, you learn which patients to accept and which to refer elsewhere. You don't think of it as rationing care. You think of it as resource optimization. The phrase feels clean, professional. You use it often. You get your first consulting gig. A medical device company pays you $3,000 to attend a weekend conference in Scottsdale. They don't ask you to say anything specific. They just want you in the room, wearing their logo, answering questions from younger surgeons who want to be where you are. You spend 6 hours by the pool. You bill them for your flight, your hotel, your meals. You come home with $3,000 and a new set of golf clubs. You don't play golf. You will learn. The chief of surgery invites you to dinner, just you and 3 other attendings at a restaurant where the menus don't have prices. He talks about the future. The department is expanding. New surgical tower, robotic surgery program. He needs people he can trust, people who understand that surgery is a business as much as a calling. You have a reputation, he says, for being smart, for being careful, for knowing when to speak and when to listen. He doesn't mention the patient who died on your table 2 years ago. He doesn't need to. You both know it's in your file. You both know it didn't stop your ascent. You say yes to whatever he's offering before he even names it. Level 5, the Gatekeeper. You sit on the residency selection committee. This is where the real power begins. Not in the operating room, anyone can learn to cut. The real power is in deciding who gets to learn. You review 340 applications this cycle. You interview 60 candidates. You rank 30. Only 6 will match. You develop a system, GPA and board scores are baseline. They get you in the room. After that, you look for something harder to name. Hunger but controlled, ambition but pliable. Someone who wants it badly enough to sacrifice everything, but not so badly that they'll become dangerous. You reject a candidate with perfect scores because he mentions malpractice reform 3 times in a 20-minute interview. Too political, too likely to cause problems. You rank a woman with average scores because she mentions casually that her father is a hospital administrator in Philadelphia. Connections are currency. You spend them wisely. Your salary is $520,000 now, plus $80,000 in consulting fees, plus stock options from a biotech startup where you serve on the advisory board. You don't understand what the company does. Something with peptides. It doesn't matter. Your name on their letterhead is worth more than your medical opinion. You buy a house. Not a big one. You're not ostentatious. You tell yourself, but it's in the right zip code. The mortgage is $8,400 a month. Your wife wants to talk about having children. You keep scheduling the conversation for next month. A complication happens. One of your residents nicks the common bile duct during a routine case. The patient needs a second surgery, a third, eventually a transplant. The family hires a lawyer. The hospital's risk management team handles it. You are never deposed. You're never named. But you know what happened? You know whose hands were in the field? You know you weren't there. You pull the resident aside. He's shaking. 28 years old, $250,000 in debt, watching his future dissolve in real time. This is what happens, you tell him. This is the cost of being here. You carry it, quietly. You don't talk to the family. You don't write anything down that isn't in the chart. You let the system absorb it. He nods, he understands, or he pretends to. You wonder, later, if you're teaching him survival or corruption. The distinction feels blurry. You stop wondering. Level 6, the authority. They make you chief of the division, surgical oncology, 16 attendings, 43 residents and fellows, a budget of $14 million. You have an office with a window that looks out over the parking garage, and you spend more time staring at spreadsheets than you do at human anatomy. Your compensation is $780,000 base, plus bonuses tied to departmental revenue, plus your consulting arrangements, plus the speaking fees $15,000 for a weekend in Dallas, $22,000 for 3 days in Munich. You develop a presentation about surgical innovation that you give 47 times in 2 years. You could deliver it in your sleep. Sometimes you think you do. You haven't operated in 3 weeks. You tell yourself it's temporary. The administrative load, the strategic planning, the quarterly reviews. But part of you knows the truth. You're becoming something else, something that used to operate, that remembers the feel of tissue and the smell of cautery, but that now exists in conference rooms and committee meetings and dinners where deals are made between courses. You fire someone, a senior attending, 15 years your senior, who refuses to adopt the new electronic health record system. He's a dinosaur. Brilliant hands, but he can't adapt. The hospital wants him gone. The department wants him gone. You're the one who tells him. He looks at you across your desk, the desk you chose from a catalog, $4,200, walnut, and he says, I taught you everything you know about pancreatic surgery. I know, you say. I held your hand through your first Whipple. I remember. And this is how you repay me. You don't answer. There is no answer that would satisfy either of you. You slide the paperwork across the desk. He doesn't sign it. He doesn't need to. It's already done. That night, you drink 2 glasses of scotch instead of 1. You stand in your kitchen at 11 p.m., looking at the house you bought, the life you built, and you feel something you can't name. Not guilt. Guilt would be cleaner. This is something heavier. Something that has no opposite. Your wife has stopped asking about children. Level 7, the broker. You are offered the chair, Department of Surgery, one of the top 10 in the country. The salary is $1.2 million. The power is harder to quantify. You will control hiring, firing, promotion, funding, the entire pipeline that produces the surgeons who will practice for the next 30 years. You will sit on the hospital board. You will have dinner with the CEO. You will decide which research gets funded, which specialties expand, which ones slowly suffocate. You negotiate for 3 weeks. Not the money. The money is almost irrelevant now. You negotiate for control over the residency program, over the new surgical tower, over the robotic surgery initiative that will cost $18 million and define the department for the next decade. They give you everything. They need you more than you need them. Your reputation has become a self-sustaining entity. It walks into rooms before you do. It closes deals you haven't even discussed. You operate once a month now. Just the cases you choose, the challenging ones, the interesting ones, the ones that remind you why you started. But even those feel different. You're not just a surgeon in the room, you're the chair. People perform differently when you're there. They laugh at your jokes, they agree with your assessments, they tell you your technique is elegant, even when you know it wasn't your best. You can't trust anyone's reaction anymore. You can't tell where competence ends and performance begins. A resident dies. Not in your hospital, across town, at a community program, during a routine case. The autopsy finds cocaine in his system. He was one of yours 2 years ago. You remember him. Smart, quiet, always the first to arrive, the last to leave. You recommended him for the fellowship he was doing when he died. The media calls. You give a statement through the hospital's communications office. Tragic loss, dedicated physician. Our thoughts are with his family. You don't mention the system that ground him down. You don't mention the 80-hour weeks, the sleep deprivation, the $400,000 debt, the culture that taught him he was only as valuable as his productivity. You don't mention that you saw him shaking once during a case and you told him to drink more water. You attend the funeral, you sit in the back, you leave before the family receives guests. Your wife moves into the guest room. She says it's because you snore. You both know that's not the reason. You don't discuss it. Discussion would require acknowledging something neither of you wants to name. Level 8, the architect. You are 73 years old. You retired from the chair 5 years ago, but retirement means something different at this level. You still sit on 3 corporate boards, you still advise the FDA on surgical devices, you still have lunch once a month with the current chair, your protege, though he doesn't call himself that, and you still shape decisions he thinks are his own. Your net worth is $18 million. You have a house in the city, an apartment in New York, a place in the mountains you visit twice a year. You have no children. You have a wife who lives in the apartment in New York and a companion who lives in the mountains, and neither of them asks you for more than you want to give. You haven't operated in 4 years. Your hands are steady. You check, sometimes, holding a pen, a glass, a scalpel you keep in your desk drawer, but the knowledge has gone stale. The techniques have evolved. The residents you trained are training residents who are training residents, and the chain stretches back to you, but the links have become unfamiliar. You spend your days reading, not medical journals. You stopped finding them interesting years ago. Philosophy, history, biographies of men who built empires and died wondering if it mattered. You recognize yourself in them. You don't find comfort in the recognition. A young surgeon comes to see you. 32, just made attending at your old hospital. He wants advice. He sits in the chair across from your desk, the same desk, $4,200 walnut. You took it with you when you left, and he tells you about his ambitions. Research, leadership, the chair eventually. He wants to know the path. You look at him. He is hungry in the way you were hungry. He is blind in the way you were blind. He thinks the system rewards merit. He thinks hard work and good outcomes will protect him. He doesn't understand that the system doesn't care about him, that it never did, that it used him as it used you, as fuel for its own continuation. Be careful what you sacrifice, you say. He nods, but you can see he doesn't understand. He thinks you're being metaphorical. He thinks you're testing him. He will go back to the hospital and work harder, sleep less, cut more corners. And one day he will be where you are, sitting across from someone younger, saying something similar, watching them not understand. You don't warn him again. You learned long ago that warnings are wasted on the willing. After he leaves, you sit in the quiet of your office. The city moves outside your window somewhere. A beeper is going off at 2:13 a.m., and someone is counting to 3 before their feet hit cold linoleum. Somewhere a resident is holding retractors until their arms burn, learning the first lesson of the system. You are useful, and you are invisible. You pick up the scalpel from your desk drawer. You turn it in the light. It is beautiful. It is precise. It is exactly what it was designed to be. You were designed too. You served your function. The system continues without you now, as it continued before you, as it will continue after. Somewhere across the city, a new intern is shaking a chief resident's hand for the first time. He thinks he understands the rules. He doesn't, but he will.